y'all, it's Rachel Prize here, or should I say Rachel Axelroot Dupree Farley. So, as I was out lounging around the hotel's luxurious pool and spa, like I do every week, the pool boy noticed that I looked forward and recommended for me to read Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It's a classic, he says. It contains love, romance, gossip, rich men, everything you enjoy. So why not, I figured. Well, let me tell you, there is a reason why this book is over 200 years old. Because it is outdated and after the first 50 pages gets real boring real fast. If you don't believe me, just listen.
Netherfield Park is let at last, is it?
Pride and Prejudice is set in a time where once a young girl hits a marriageable age, she should seek to marry immediately. Specifically, it revolves around the stubborn protagonist, Elizabeth Bennet, and her four sisters, Jane, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia, who are at this very age and are being nagged and tormented by their intense and crazy mother to find a rich man to marry as soon as possible. Seems sensible, right? I think so. Obviously. However, this is not in Elizabeth's ideology to marry solely for money.
Nothing but the very deepest love will induce me into matrimony.
Fortunately, a new man in town arrives, Mr. Bingley, who is incredibly handsome and makes $5,000 a year. Naturally, Mrs. Bennet is trying her absolute hardest to marry off one of her daughters to this gent. But Mr. Bingley does not arrive alone. He is accompanied by Mr. Darcy, the sultry, mysterious, wealthy Mr. Darcy, who just so happens to cross paths with Elizabeth at the Netherfield ball. However, he comes across to her as self-conceited and pompous, as she shockingly does not like him at all. Don't ask me how, because this is beyond reasoning to me, but we'll get to this later on. And so a series of scandalous events occur that involve Elizabeth, her sisters, and really her whole family, as she finally realizes after several foolish marriage proposal rejections how easy it is to misjudge a person's character and how everything and everyone is not always as they seem. To Elizabeth's surprise, she finds that she can't resist Mr. Darcy's irresistible charm and will not allow anything or anyone to stand in their love's way. All in all, everybody, especially Mrs. Bennet, is happy at the end, as Jane and Elizabeth are both happily married to the richest man in the novel. Coincidence? I guess that's up for you to decide, but me personally, I think the girl finally unveiled her blindfolds and came to her senses. Alright, so before we move on, I think it's important that we take a closer look at a couple of key scenes. So the first I want to show you is Darcy and Elizabeth's dance at one of the balls. They do have a lot of dances, huh? I wish I was that lucky. The gowns, suits, decorations, fancy music, it's all so wonderful. It reminds me of the few extravagant gatherings that I've attended here in Johannesburg. If only I could have a fraction of the lifestyle that Darcy lives on. I suppose I'm straying off topic here. Back to this scene. Yes, this takes place after Darcy rejected Elizabeth at the first Netherfield ball, so Elizabeth already regards Darcy as arrogant, proud,
We're each of an unsocial, taciturn disposition. I'm willing to speak unless we expect to say something that will amaze the whole room.
This is no very striking resemblance of your own character, I'm sure.
However, this is one of the first scenes in which a sexual tension is clearly visible in the ear. Although it takes a lot more for Elizabeth to finally overcome her prejudice toward Darcy, this scene makes it evident to the reader that their relationship is going to certainly keep developing and growing. The other scene that I feel is worthy of attention involves Lady Kathryn and Elizabeth's heated confrontation. Basically, Lady Kathryn heard rumors of Darcy's intent to marry Elizabeth and traveled all the way to the Longbourn estate to personally scare Elizabeth from even thinking about accepting his proposal.
But that you, Miss Elizabeth Bennet, would be soon afterwards united to my own nephew, Mr. Darcy.
She brings the issue of money and the Bennet's lower social status into the equation, to which both gals grow defensive.
I'm accustomed to such language as this. I am almost the nearest relation he has, and I am entitled to know all his nearest concerns.
But you are not entitled to know mine, nor will such behavior as this induce me to be explicit.
Let me be rightly understood. This match to which you have the presumption to aspire can never take place. Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter. Now, what have you to say?
I am only resolved to act in a manner which will constitute my own happiness without reference to you or to any person so wholly unconnected with me.
So you want to know my rating of this scene? A 9. I surprisingly like this scene because Lady Kathryn is finally the last of too many obstacles standing in the way between Darcy and Miss Elizabeth. And Elizabeth's confrontation with the lady probably marks the heroine's most admirable moment. All of the qualities that Elizabeth values, and me too. Intelligence, wit, independence, resistance to snobbery are all present in her dialogue. Speaking of Elizabeth, I suppose now would be a good time to discuss which characters I liked or, didn't like. Starting with Elizabeth. As we all know, or at least I do, Elizabeth is the main girl. I suppose she is intelligent, though I label her a fool for almost letting 2 rich men, clearly interested in her, walk away. It's unfathomable. So maybe I can understand why she wouldn't want Mr. Collins. Let's be honest, he wasn't the most attractive fellow, was he? But Mr. Darcy, I cannot believe it took her 300 pages to marry the man. Geez, you know what they say, book smart, street stupid. Despite her lack of common sense, the one thing I do admire about Elizabeth is her strength, independence, and determination not to let society dictate her life. Yes, I know this was set in the 1800s, but come on, just because she's a gal does not mean she must become fully dependent on a man. That just ain't right. I mean, look at me. I'm a strong-willed lady, a widow, and I'm doing great at running my own hotel business. Though I do believe ladies should be poised, respectful, and ladylike. I think that we deserve some independence too. Okay, before I get all in a toughie, I'll move on to her sister Jane. Jane is the eldest of the Bennet sisters, and also one of the luckiest. For one, she immediately grabs the attention of one of the richest and most handsomest single man in town, Mr. Bingley. And two, she is gorgeous. From the way that Jane Austen describes this woman in the novel, I wish that I had her beautiful face and luscious hair. Speaking of beautiful faces, can we just take a moment to drool over Mr. Darcy's perfection? Not only is he handsome, but he is incredibly rich. Like, oh my gosh, the best combo ever. I guess he is sweet and charming, especially towards Elizabeth.
In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
Of course, he is a little proud in the beginning, but can you blame the guy? I mean, if I came from such a wealthy, respected, and prestigious family like the Fitzgeralds, there's no promising how I would act. But the fact that he overcomes this pride to acknowledge and express his love for Elizabeth makes him probably 100 times even more attractive. Man, I wish that I had a gentleman like Darcy in my life. But I suppose the hotel will have to do. Now, the next character that I want to discuss isn't necessarily a main gal, but she is someone that I understand very well and have a lot of respect for. Charlotte, one of Elizabeth's closest friends, is pragmatic and probably the smartest gal in the book. She is single, comes from a poor family, isn't the most attractive, and realizes that her time to find a husband is quickly dwindling. So what does she do? She takes full advantage of the first wealthy man available, Mr. Collins, and marries him. I feel it's a win-win situation. She finally gets away from her parents, improves her social status, has a date to attend the balls with now, and gets to live in a big estate. So what if she doesn't necessarily love the guy? He has money, and you can easily fall in love with money. Believe me. So you want to know my overall thoughts on Pride and Prejudice? It's an unnecessarily long book that primarily focuses on the relationship between Elizabeth and Darcy, which could have been solved within the first half of the book if she would have accepted his proposal like a sane woman. But no, the reader has to suffer through lengthy, confusing, and boring passages in the middle of the novel before Elizabeth overcomes her stubbornness. I suppose what Jane Austen was trying to convey is that, it's important for one to follow their hearts and marry for love? We all know how I feel about that. My parents did that and they aren't the happiest now. They barely even talk. But I took the other route, and look how I turned out. Successful, beautiful, strong-willed, and living comfortably. So yeah, Pride and Prejudice certainly aggravated me many times, although it had a select few scenes which I liked. However, it has no relevance in today's society of the 20th century because arranged marriages are practically extinct, like the dinosaurs. Well, that's all I have for y'all. I gotta get back to running my hotel before the monkeys get loose again. Ta-ta!